Welcome to a podcast that discusses what an experience firsthand of privately owned Palatka County Jail. This insight is coming from an arrest where you have two false statements perverting an investigation that led to an arrest of a logistician, U.S. Army, former U.S. Army staff sergeant, and a headquarters senior analyst for process improvement. This is my response to overreach. See, when mine comes out to find out that there is large change when I've already been experiencing throughout my entire family, throughout my entire childhood, throughout the entire history of me in my hometown, and learning by leaving and getting real knowledge, real combat hasty trained, walk with pen and paper, go collect data with a forecasting model, a pragmatic forecasting, and getting to the new, real change. I am giving you a headquarters analyst firsthand view of my experiences. Although they're humiliating and embarrassing and come with a lot of darkness in my life, I am coming with truth because it's 100%, 100% the way to stay in the word, in the light, and in the path of do not gamble.
All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. And I'm excited to get into this week's podcast. Here we go. Isolation with the hurricane. As I entered into the population, leaving the waiting rooms, the waiting cells up front, you're put into the orange outfits. You're removed from all your property. You don't have anything supposed to be going to the bag. It becomes contraband. But you're depends on when you're brought in, can be restricted on supplies, towels, underwear. It depends, these kind of things. But you are going to be processed to the back, so don't get caught with contraband. What's contraband? That's your socks, original boxers, those kind of things. Drugs, don't do that for sure. Just comply and stay in compliant, and you should see that it's not so abusive. You'll see the abuse is not coming from the jailer this time. It's going to come from the back when they see the contraband, and they are trying to acquire it as quick as possible. They are very observant. So I do the walk, and we get to isolation. Everything's closed up. There's no walk around. It's a pod. It has tables. It has community space, but it's refrains from using all that space, especially with an act of God. And that's what you'll see with this new hurricane protocol that I am now entangled in, to whenever the weekend, I assume, is over and everybody gets back to court, which is in charge of the protocol and can make the call that protocol has ended and move the inmates that are improperly placed into this protocol requirement of hurricane to actually be put into population. And the the struggles, the hardship I faced were unbelievably way more than I've ever seen anywhere in life. Even as a military soldier detaining other countries the in combat, it was inhumane. It was to the level of neglect that I felt less than a citizen, less than cared for, less than someone actually putting heart into this process of well being, mental health. It was just taking and taking and taking and taking from humanity. Like I said, I've been in combat, I've detained, and never would I put such harshness on a human being and call that a system. Here we go. I get back there, and the first thing I observe is a. I'm not in my own cell. We're not getting placed in our own cell. We are actually with real isolation inmates. I don't know how much you guys know about isolation inmates, but they develop a culture and an education and a way of controlling or pushing back to the systems that they are entangled in and get very savvy at it with these long detentions or these repeat detentions. It becomes a lifestyle of respect, of space, and conflict. And it's dance somewhat of how to take uneducated newbies and get them to where they understand everything they're doing from day one till probably month four is violating the underlying culture of inmates. We are we the newbies are just not aware or have a book or a pamphlet or anything, and we assume that law is followed and life is important and well-being is in the care of the jailers to make sure that we are safe. That's a big statement, but that was my mindset as a newbie going into a isolated cell with exposure to someone that does know how to navigate and then also is in isolation for their inability to adjust to conflict or communicate or something is missing there that has them breaking down and repeating and trying to push back that I am going to have to be quiet, be still, and try to observe so I can get along. I can survive. So that's very hard when you have to step on someone's bed to get up to your bed. You have to find out when you're getting fed, when you're getting your ability to make a phone call, your ability to get all the neglected supplies like toothpaste. You have to borrow toothpaste as soon as you enter into a jail system. It's going to be somewhat difficult to find someone to help inside and waste their resources that are hard to resupply from scratch as well. And it makes you vulnerable for misuse, mishandling, theft, these type of things as they try to gauge your ability to survive in this culture, this underlining culture and system. So here I am. I go in. I'm the third in the cell. There is a pacer and seems to prefer to stay out of the way of the newbies, and we're disturbing him as soon as we enter his cell. I believe his name was John Dermis from Miami area. That's what he at least claims. And he has a lot of family and cousins and experience with the system, I learned. And he, luckily, because I know his violent background, he likes fighting bigger people. And the more upset you are, the faster he gets upset, and he's going to escalate into conflict as soon as possible because by understanding that newbies should not be in isolation, we are all as another newbie and another newbie come in and we fill that cell, we are all in danger of him needing his space back and the frustrations he goes through by just pointing out violations to the system in place and getting movement. Like he's a navigator of survivability. And I say that first because as it rolls out, you'll see that the plot was there and his threats were getting stronger and stronger. I luckily was briefly with him when I was in Gainesville's weekend jail while I was in college for driving on a suspended license. And what happened there was I got my license back brand new at 12 point. However, I went to driving school and didn't turn my certificate back to the clerk of court. I thought they did all that. And the point went to 18 points and I already lost my license again, even though on the same day I got it printed out, still without a license because it's violated that next day. And I'm driving on a suspended license. It was difficult because I couldn't go back to the hardship licensed office, which is now removed for being biased from the entire state. I couldn't go back to that hardship office and then explain to a level where they would approve me. I shouldn't have lost my license and it was misunderstanding or any of that, which left me in front of a judge with no plan, no timetable of when I could get my license back, which then turned into his quick judgment to go ahead and enter into incarceration. And sadly to say, I did get to negotiate weekend jail only and stay in college and avoid driving on a suspended license. But there's serious consequences from that mismanagement of my misdemeanor record that continues to show up in jobs, my career for 7 years, sometimes 10 years. And if you do the full federal application, it could be life. So here I am trying to get myself put together, trying to not be conflicts with anyone, just get to where I'll be able to sleep on this hard mat with no pillow. What am I rolling up? And how cold is it? Just, just getting yourself settled. I have one towel. I have a half sheet drip, no blanket, and the mat is flat. your hip hurt, your back hurt, don't matter how you lay on it, they know those mats are wore out and there's nothing coming in until you literally find the right guard and they help you. So here we go. I'm settled in, and then, you know, we're all talking about how we got arrested, and John, John continues to share a story, but it's in repeat. And I'm not cued in on everything that's being recorded in the cell, but he's presenting his case through the cell recording by continually getting confirmation from everybody and getting his side of the story out that conflict with what he's showing me now as he's already collected from the cell. He's building his case himself. He's got a police report, initial police report. He's got a second police report, a changed, modified, still not solid enough for the charges they're bringing up on him of fleeing. And he has a third, well written, extended from fleeing incident to six turns, run stoplights. Now he's really fleeing from the initial followed fleeing vehicle 50 feet to a driveway where he tried to exit and we obtained him. That's kind of weird to see that firsthand, that somebody's report is changing behind the scenes at the police station without the initial snapshot provided. And then this officer is going to come to trial and testify on his revised snapshot. You get one chance at a snapshot. You train to be better at the snapshot. You don't get to go do a training class with senior police officers and make modifications to your snapshot. Get one shot. The rest is testimony and cross examination where you can clarify what your one shot statement was trying to, or what's challenged and what is valid on that statement. That is oversight. That is overstep. That is corruption. And when I say oversight, it's neglect, negligence being oversighted. It's not good. It is fraud, just not being convicted. It is a bad system. And as a senior analyst for headquarters, we would frown on that highly. Palatka County Jail. So listening, but it takes me a couple days to realize that he's just repeating the same thing over and over and over again, that he's done the investigation from jail and is identified. So in theory, the judge reads all of this recordings from the prison and is able to fill the human in his story, because it was a very difficult arrest. It literally, his child in his story, a mixed child, and he is the known caregiver parent for them, just missing a blood test. So when the child was removed from the mother, the police were called and they were sent to recover the child. I don't know all of that. This is my interactions with him, and I'm not saying it's true. I don't know if he's went to court, but I did physically observe 3 statements that he was able to slide out, being in there 8 months to acquire them, and had to write the judge to get one of them because they're withholding the evidence. So I wish him the best. He taught me a lot. He took care of us in there before he became a threatening, dangerous, endangering small body that would be very violent if anything broke out. And there was an inmate newbie that he was targeting to be his victim to clear out that whole cell so he could have his cell back, which I had to stay out of and comply. But you don't want to see that if you're in combat and you're leaving a village and they can't take care of themselves, you know? So that's my only relative experience of that is to know you're leaving someone harmless in endangered by threat. So we get in there. Remember, we're on hurricane protocol, and what that means is they're trying to keep this at a population. It also means, and that's supposed to be safe, instead of leaving us up in the front with the waiting rooms and not having the ability to continue to rescue the hurricane, they cleared those front cells and put us in isolation. Now, my recommendation there would be how many can fit in the holding cells up front, and then what number do we hit where we have to move those to the back, because what you can't address and get help from the officers in the front can be detrimental in the back. And you'll see as we go through this. There's no tablet, and the tablets are used to communicate by email, get your family connected, and be able to communicate back and forth. You have to pay for it, so people have to put in JPay money so you can read your own messages, and then once a week you get 50 cents or a certain amount that usually pays for one or two messages. If you don't have that JPay commissionary funds deposited so you can just read the email they sent you. So it turned into a 7-day delay just to read an email, and I actually had to experience it. So the tablets need to be available, and that is something that have rights for, is to allow us to communicate. And we are not in isolation. We are not that population. We are actually just held in isolation until the hurricane's complete. I couldn't request for property release so they could get my money out. My family doesn't have any money to help get bond. Only I have money, but it's locked up on my debit card, and no one has access to that until I release the property. No request for evidence on my first police report. No request for case information, the case studies, the resources, no legal. Basically, it was chaplain available. And a lot of the inmates don't know how powerful a chaplain is to getting things done when when they directly communicate with the high staff of chain of command. They are a resource. They're not they're not just to pray about and do weekend services. They are actually a resource, and they're looking for better ways to improve how they serve the prison or jail, any community, and they listen. And sometimes just sharing it can get big blocks moved. So don't ever shy away from, I'm not getting anything done. Go to the chaplain. They will listen and help as much as they can. And and it just is a message. They have enough power and influence. Usually the right things comes out of those meetings. I'm gonna go day by day from here. And so day one was processing in, understanding the button, and it's a two-way radio system that is recording us all the time, and then understanding the basic protocol of lunch, dinner, breakfast, lights out, count, these kind of things. By day one afternoon, the trauma starts. There is an incident with one of the officers that says something's not happening during a hurricane, which triggers which triggers upset in isolation. They start banging the walls, they start threatening to set the sprinklers off. It's full, everybody kicking doors. It's hostile, but it's their pushback to move the jailers from whatever their disagreement is. And it does some validity, chaos, but I didn't want any part of that. And to put my time and my freedom and my getting additional time under that duress, I'd rather sit on my bed. We get through that evening and we sleep. Day two, there is a morning raid by the officers into the cells because of either a tip or wrong words used on cameras. Something occurs that gets a raid for drugs, which they do go into a cell after searching everyone, and they do find drugs, and they put it on the table, and they evidence baggie, and there is drugs, there is contraband inside of that prison or jail at that time. And for me, this is an experience. I've never seen anything like this occurring, and it's eye opening. It's life changing to watch everybody get cleared out of a cell and somebody taking on more charges for something of an addiction. Then I'm told that it's a gang. Those are all of the gang, the East Side boys, and they got guns and they do crazy stuff. But for me, as an observer, they weren't, I don't know, it didn't feel gang threatening. It seemed demographically incorrect. But again, I'm not systemized. I'm not in long enough to learn anything. Just the same as I joined the military at 17, and I have no street smarts as well. And I'm naive to cons and finesse and those type of hard choices that can get other people in trouble and keep yourself out of trouble. I don't I don't dabber in that. I don't do any of that. I just follow the rules, try to be leadership, try to give you a better choices, better life, and I can either reach you or I don't reach you, but it still reaches your subconscious. Your subconscious, your human, that's always listening as well. And that's called wisdom when it takes you still 7 years to finally register what somebody told you way back then that you should have took on and followed then. It catches up with you. It's still inputted. It's an imprint and it will pay off. Don't be scared that you'll learn something from somebody talking well to you and trying to give you care because when it does hit, I remember Dixie Chicks. It sung everything about life on one album, and it's taken me my whole life to catch up with that one album that I played blasting in my vehicle over and over and over again. Songs to repeat, Top of the World, Little Songbird, those quiet voices. It had a layout of things that I would learn eventually throughout life. on how life works and lives. It even guided me to landmarkworldwide.com, which is coaches for living, the education of life and professional development. Dixie Chick's father, the songwriter, went to that. Another one that went to that is Dr. Phil and Oprah's relationship started with what eventually is called the Landmark, and how Oprah won the meat trial was entangled into all of that training, the snap out of it training. This is really happening. Uncollapse it and let's get to work. That training is landmarkworldwide.com. So if you're looking for coaching that gives you rapid breakdowns and you have to overcome with a coach so you make best decisions and stay polished and stay clear of mind and light-headed and able to process, that is Landmark and Landmark Form Leaders. And if you don't know it, I would definitely Google it. The the ability to see this incident firsthand was eye-opening, but to see how it unraveled and how they all are banging the door with their feet, and the roof with, I guess, brooms, maybe mops. I don't know what you can bang the sprinklers. And I wasn't. I wouldn't be able to engineer any of that from what I'm looking at in the cell. But they were able to retaliate once the put back in the cell, and the one that was caught was being wheeled out of the cell to, I guess, max security cell where you're strapped into the chair, kind of padded cells. I wasn't over there, so luckily, but I wasn't over there to observe them. But there are additional hallway cells that you only are in there now by yourself, and I don't think you get unstrapped from the chair. I guess that's the cool down period, but just put in there. They retaliated and set the sprinkler heads off. Now we're in a flooding of a whole pod soaked with water because the sprinkler system is triggered by the prison inmate, jail inmates, and it's soaked. The jailers come in strong and forth. Now they have to remove each one out of the cell, and then they have other gang members inciting violence, and they have to go get those two, and it turns into two at a time, but you got to take them different ways because they're inciting everyone. Here we go. Second floor, guys in handcuffs. The most terrible thing I've seen in the prison, in the jail. He's in handcuffs. The jailers are finally get him cuffed up and everything, and they like go, and they're patting him on his shoulder, saying go, because to them they've accomplished what they need to accomplish. He's walking down the stairs. He fakes the trip and jumps. Now I don't know. It could have been a real trip. You're handcuffed with your hands, but it seemed like from listening to the others on why that occurred, could have been on purpose. There's only way they explained it, two people get out of that system of corruption, and it's hurt yourself. The jail lets you go so they don't have to cover liability, and you're released to the hospital for them to care for you on your non-insurance. That's not okay. That is neglect. That is a straight violation that is suable and should accident attorneys be here all the time, right there, just straightening out all this mutual fund money that is just not paying for liability. The other way is you get your parents and the community involved, and they can create that release. The third way is pee and poop on yourself until the jailers, are tired of cleaning it up, and then they will let you out as medical because you can't hold anything. Crazy, right? But those are the three examples that I was brought back to me when I asked, what are they doing? Crazy stuff. But this gentleman jumped from the stairs. It was like the fifth floor, fifth step, fourth step. It's pretty high, and landed with no hands. He's handcuffed, breaking either a hip, a shoulder, something in his back, his hand. It was immediate pain. And they just kept screaming at everything they did, to where they did have to bring a stretcher and they did have to send him to the hospital. In theory, no one sees past the door, but wow, here we go. I'm like, you are a lawsuit. That is not the officer didn't have a he got him walking down the stairs freely. He doesn't have a hand on him. He doesn't hold the cuffs. He's an overweight officer, and he felt more comfortable walking himself down at that large size than to maintain control of his captoree as the capturer, responsible for the capturee safety and well-being while in detainment. I know those words aren't perfect, but you get what I'm saying. This person sat there suffering and suffering and suffering, screaming and screaming and screaming until the hospital finally sent EMT to location and was able to gurney him up. And I guess he was on his way to the hospital to take care of all the damages. I don't know how much damages you get from handcuffing yourself and jumping or falling in a long lunging, maybe 3 to 5 feet lunge or trip to the ground. But it seems possibly severe. And to do that, to prove a to prove a point, I can manipulate the system, is dramatic at best. It still irks me to think about it, you know, to take that loss and then call it a win. Don't ever want to be in that peril. So now we've seen abuse of power, we've seen gang related incidents, and I am in there for my understanding, one day released on reconnaissance. It's just me finding out I'm not getting released on reconnaissance, and there won't even be a courtroom until after hurricane protocol is lifted, and there's no judges to sign off on releasing anyone until hurricane protocol is they're on vacation. They are 5 days, 6 days, 8 days, whatever the judges want. They're on vacation. They're going to visit family somewhere that is not hurricane and have a great time off without any responsibility by putting us in a hurricane protocol. And it did take a while to remove hurricane protocol with the week started. It wasn't, whoo, let's get these guys out of here. Okay, no, it was the judges aren't back yet. They've decided They're going to continue till this date, extending their vacation. That's my interpretation of it. I don't know if that's what occurred or not, but there's plenty of work to catch on. And the human aspect of it, the improperly played inmate, is also negligence. You have a responsibility to our rights as you are the upholding legal authority for that civilians' rights. I understand falsely and wrongfully arresting can get so easily in pleas and convictions that it doesn't seem like a voice, but rights always have a voice. They might not have a good communicator or a camera or a recording. However, a complaint does move a process. So stuck, still can't do release for property release, can't do evidence, can't do any legal resources to learn, can't look at the SOP, can't find out when laundry is, can't find out how to put a request in to get my property released, can't find out how to file a complaint, can't find out how to take care of my health. I'm getting refused health checks by saying we, which you'll see on day 3. Here we go. By day 2 in, they've decided or something occurs. It seems like one of the jailers that was aware of a trigger if they touch something that would stop the air condition from working. From what I heard in gossip from the jailers, if you use a long pointing stick and touch that breaker the right way, it'll poof, blow the fuse and turn all the air off. Now, I don't know. I can't prove it. However, the AC all of a sudden stops working after that riot and the drug bust and that commotion. The AC is now off. We are still locked in cells, no air coming in, but a little small square where you push the tray in, and sweat starts. Excessive sweat for me. I'm 230 pounds, 6'3", and gonna sweat all that extra weight off right in there, which is excessive. And I'm just dripping. Towel, rub, drip, 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 drip. Chin, face, nose is dripping, eyelashes are dripping, towel, rub, arms stinking, rub your arms, everything's soaking wet. Rub your leg, rub your body, rub your back, try to get some of the sweat up to where now I'm squeezing out my towel to try to make it's brown, it's not white anymore, and it's still wet as I'm trying to mop myself with this one towel I have. So I make it through that first night, struggle. It's hard. It was no sleep. It was just wishing the AC would come back on. You can put your hands out the square mill slot and feel the cold and kind of flutter it towards the hole and hope you can get something on your face. But I am red, you know, face flushed red all over, like of excessive sweat and towel rub and not doing well at all. So by morning, I'm using the sheets to wipe off entirely. The towel is done. It's just a stinking pile of hide that from everyone else because I don't even know how to wash this or get it out of here. It's just junk that should not be so stinking. I am trying to hide the stink from everyone else. So I got my mat over it, and that's as good as I can do. My sleeping pad mat. By by lunch, the John explains to me that you need to get out of all that wet stuff, man. It's uncomfortable in here. And I agree. I am stripped all the way down, out of everything, in my boxers, and you can see through my boxers with a bunch of guys in the room. And he's not telling me. He's giving me the first warning nicely. I need to take an action. And I don't know how to navigate the system. So he pushes the button for me and says, "You need to get this dude some clean boxers and or out of here." And they say, "All right, we'll see what we can do," which means nothing, but somebody was told. It takes several requests with officers to actually get care from any of them. It's a struggle. But now I understand there's a threat, so I keep pushing the button. I go try to keep in touch with them, and I want to get clean boxers too. So we're not getting any headway. I guess harassing the officers up there in their comfortable chairs, watching all the pods on a TV screen, and their shifts and all the work they have to do is keeping them from coming toward to us to provide anything. But there is no system. They're not following SOP. At this day, laundry is at this time. You get medical. At this, you do this. No, it's seemed like an avoid system, and the less they have to deal with anything, then the better they feel about their shift. So John jumps in again and sees the nurses coming around, and he says, "Look, get your blood pressure checked because then you'll have what you got checked in with compared to what is occurring now, which is it's straight heat. Everyone is in a struggle in here, and it will start documenting what's occurring so we can get you the services you need." Genius. I never would have looked at a system like that, but I understood what he was saying, and I requested to get my blood pressure checked because I felt like I was going to pass out. I had nothing left. I'm just sweating, standing there sweating. I couldn't even sit down. It's a lake in my up my top bed bunk, my top bunk. So I'm a struggle, and I agree. I need to get my health check. I didn't know. I thought that was medicine run. I didn't know that was open for people to get their health check. So it was a big tip to controlling how my care is inside of a system that is not working. So the nurses come. They come right to the window. Two of them. Well, one of them at first, but when they see me fully stripped down, all this is me, my observation. I can't say for a fact. I'm sure that I'll get a bunch of comments, but a good military, healthy, athletic build on me. Boxers, which I forget at that point, are see through, and it's just me like a like a an exposed, captured, unable to do anything but just stand there. A good example of it from a movie is when the gladiators are lined up and then the kings and the nobles come and they check them and see how fit they are, you know what I mean, and muscles, and they want to see are they going to be a good worker or are they going to be a fighter or are they going to be that kind of humility, just underwear, strap, and abs or whatever else is out there. is just exposed. And first nurse come just starts staring. I'm like, what's going on? She gets the next nurse over there. Now we got two nurses staring through the window, staring. Like, we on the street now. I don't know what's going on. And then they called the jailer over there, which is a female, and it's three of them just staring at me, exposed. I'm not getting it. And then I start realizing exposed, completely drenched. And it's a breakdown right now of policy and getting looked at in a way that I've never been looked at before. And they're all in pause. They eventually, I guess, assess the threat as non-violent. That's all I can think of on their behalf to try to talk up that this is occurring. But they do enter. The jailer opens it. The nurses come and tell me to come out. First time with cold air. Holy moly. They leave the door open. Our whole cell gets cold air. They're happy too. Ah, we John has manipulated the system to where he's got air in the cell at a limited time while I'm getting my blood checked, my blood pressure checked, and my temperature taken. Genius. I do that. They say, yeah, it's a little high or whatever. And they put me back in the cell. I don't get new boxers. I don't get a new towel. I don't get the new sheet that's soaking wet. I get to stay in that cell with a note to the jailer for we'll get that taken care of before, which does not occur on that shift. I believe it was the next evening something showed up on that, which I had to wait and get past the next one. John said, Dad, I won't do anything for you. So we get past that shift, and then we finally get to one that does still understand care is needed in every system. And he does bring me two pair of boxers, a towel, and then you get to keep the dirty one, the dirty towel, and the dirty sheet. Now, I guess it ain't manipulated because now I've gotten the care of what I needed 2 days ago delivered and past the delays. So thank you, John. If you're listening, Jonathan, it was empowering what you were providing me. I did appreciate it. The next day, day three, sleeping without the blankets and everything was tough. But I want my blood pressure checked again. We still haven't got the air on. So let me find out if it's going up, if I'm getting in worse health. Is this the diet that my grandmother's seeing, where our family is feeding 84-year-old too much salt in all our meals, and she's showing kidney failure? Is that what's making me excessively sweat? Is how much salt we're putting in our food? I am sweating. Everyone else is kind of sweating. I am like a water fountain, just pouring salt out of my body. Or is it just I'm out of shape? Should not be put in such hot condition because I haven't done it in so long. I'm older now. I don't know. I want to stay medically checked and document what's going on with me because this is not a succession plan. This is not anyone trying to do anything until someone or two people or a population falls. And it's getting really exposed at this point in my own experience. The nurses have a nurse manager this time or a head manager that is refusing anyone that's on the list was checked prior that week and not allowed to check you again. waste of resources. Never seen that in my life. That is somebody trying to control liability for the prison or the jail and doesn't need to be in charge of anything. When you have to conceal and hide and not report and refuse, there's nobody documenting that. They're just doing it. And the other two don't have any say in it, but they're right along getting groomed into that next position if she does retire. I'm struggling. I need to be checked. I need to make sure my blood pressure is not going up. I don't know what's going on. Is this diabetes? Is this stroke? Is this heart attack? It's difficult to be 3 days with no AC in a little box with no air and no air coming in, and you barely can eat. It's so uncomfortable in there. And you're with four dudes. I think we're up to five dudes that evening trying to live together. So on day four, well, let me go day three. Day three, we get a new entry. It's an older gentleman, and the older gentleman comes in off of a drug bust and starts detoxing on all of us. What that looks like is coming off of fentanyl, or I'm assuming fentanyl because he had lean. He had a very bad lean, like standing, his head could touch the ground and still be in a standing position and come right back up out of that. That was weird to see. But it turned into this 60 to 80-year old male, older, looking like he possibly could be dead. We don't have heat. I mean, we don't have air. It's so hot in there. And this dude is unresponsive with a lean that lets him go all the way to almost touch his head to the ground, but tongues out, just dead. If you ever seen like a cow on the side of the road dead, or how their tongue releases and it's hanging, or all that stuff, this guy was not well. So, and his name was, what do they call him? Deadeye. Deadeye. He had a patch or a bad eye, looked like Popeye, and was supposed to be a big name in the area. And uh, I don't know. I don't know. But he was the driver. It was his vehicle. And he brought in a carload of arrests. That, that detox was killing him very bad. They already went through the other guy with the false teeth, sleeping for 4 days. Now, now we're on a new older gentleman stuck in this heat and also detoxing to the level of I just got off of that and I have this lean, very bad lean. It was very eye opening, kind of serious. Don't die, buddy. They get the nurses in there, the officers, they agree he looks like he's darn dead, and they're now ready to do emergency services and take care of this guy and remove him and all this stuff. He wakes right up and goes, "What's going on?" Just detoxing, I guess. He gets better as we get through that day, and he eats and starts sharing his story and stuff, and how see no evil, hear no evil. What's the other one? Be no evil or do no evil was his motto, which made the other inmates understand he's going to keep his stuff to himself. The sleeper kept his stuff to himself. It was the two newbies rambling, you know, the one about his mama told him to leave, but he took care of the man for 10 years and a handicapped man, and the handicapped man left the house to him, but he was underage, so it couldn't go in his name or something like that. And mom's now on the mortgage. I'm supposed to eventually sign it over to her son, which is not occurring, and that's the breakdown for his arrest. Don't know if that one was true or not. Sound like a lot of mental health and abandonment and some weird underage caregiving. I don't know, but it got him there, and he still couldn't get that. He's not to go back, and probably the hardest one for John to reach because he's not listening. All he can hear is that's his property, and his mom showed up and took it from him. I don't know the truth. It was frustrating, John, listening to him ramble about his entitlement, and he is getting more and more upset as this guy took up more time to speak about it. I was sharing my story, and John would just tell his story and repeat. And then it turned into by day 4 that he said, look, you're building a case from here on out, and you don't share any of your story with public defender. There's no reason to. You tell your public defender the actions you need for motion to accomplish a full investigation, and that's your part in what's about to occur up to trial. And if you're not looking at it like that, you'd never had a lawyer in the first place. And I said, wow, that's not sounding right. But yes, the public defender verifies your statement only. That's his whole due diligence and rest his case. There is no need to go past the snapshot and look for motive, history, any of these things to talk the courtroom mic. And either you take a plea or you face the consequences of the judge for never getting your responsible, and you are taking responsibility is what they're looking for, and you just gave all that up. And then there's the judge. The judgments are usually longer because there is no, what is that, the process of empathy and understanding that you've been impact to a community, impact to your family, impact to the police station, impact to the resources, impact to the jail. There's impact. I am not living that life where I don't think I caused impact. I think that it was mishandled, and we could have avoided all this cause. And we're here now. And now I am at a critical point where my life is at stake. So here we go. Day 4. Here goes Jeller, a, a succession plan. Now, I've already requested, before I go on this succession plan, I've already requested with that same lieutenant that confronted me at the beginning of the jail time when I was entering into the jail. He's now in the back after his raid and the pat on the back because he's number 2 in the officers of command. He's the acting lieutenant for the officer above being fully in charge, and his go man. He's now in the back again. He catches me with the air off and gives me a second threat. You want to yell now? For no reason. Like in my face again. Asking me if I'm getting what he's putting down or is there going to be a problem. And I don't know why I got a second threat. So I just laugh because I'm writing this stuff down, and we will get to a point where I can get some actual assistance and actually take this on and write a complaint, go up to proper channels, and if it's not taken care of inside of the jail, I can take care of it outside of the jail just off of his actions now. So he does the second threat, and then I see him again later on, 2 days later in the evening. He's telling me, "Oh no, that was population. It was the third threat." He refuses my ability to get glasses, my request for glasses, reading glasses. I need them. I can't see anything. Actual glasses, and refusal on lease my property. So yeah, the history with him was stark and dark and just neglect and negligence and abuse. But the succession plan, the succession plan finally rolls out day four with fans entering into the pod. They had to go buy with a debit card or a credit card or the card on file for the prison. And they had the mechanic show up in the morning. They worked all day on AC and then came back the next day because I guess all you do is clean the first day. You don't actually have the part to fix anything. And then they brought igloos of water and started giving out ice water. That's their succession plan. After 4 days, locked up, sweating out. Now, granted, only isolation is doing this, just our cell, not full population. They got to go outside of the cell and everything. They got air at the top that's breathing in. Like, I assume it was a little bit more tolerable than what isolation went through, locked in these cells with all that condensation all on the walls and in the bed and everywhere, just dripping, dripping, dripping. So, as a field sanitizer expert in the military, I'm familiar with secession plans, and they start immediately. It's not 4 days later. It's literally get to a plan that works. So there had to be some kind of shareholder sign off or debit card, credit card approval for the succession plan that wasn't being approved because of the hurricane. Something broke down right there and almost caused life. But I can guarantee you what was happening as a logician, as an army, ex-army military background, their succession plan was not supposed to take 4 days. And knowing where the highest risk is also leadership. And leadership needed to resource what the fans they did have to isolation, to the areas that were showing excessive need for these. Like, that's what resources allocation is. And it has to be done by risk. I finally find out that I'm going to go to population. The fights almost broke out with John and the gentleman. They removed him from the room and let him go on day three. He was there 2 days longer than me. So he was there 6 days or 7 days. And to the point where John was going to use him as the example to get the newbies out of isolation because they're not supposed to be mixed. And if one of the isolation inmates actually jumped on a newbie, then the prison would finally address they were not supposed to be back there and find a different plan to get us back into either population or safety. And it was going to be bad. This kid was a little off, a little slow, and definitely not a fighting type. He was a very bad hurt hospital lawsuits type behavior, demeanor. It wasn't winning that he would worry about. It was ball up and hope everything doesn't break. So I felt sorry for the guy. I didn't know what would happen if if anything occurred, I know that I'm facing 10 years. I didn't know at that point, but I knew it was a felony and I'm not supposed to get involved for breaking anything up, but push that button. And then I've also, by day four, been aware that if I do push the button, it's going to have consequences for me in the long haul of being in prison. So, in a conflict point here, what do you do but tell the kid, just stop talking, man? He's not asking you anything. He's telling you, he's giving you a statement, and you need to just stop talking right now before you get yourself in trouble. They were able to move him out of there and send him to population. And then the next day, I was moved to population as well. John's raging and a continually climbing behavior toward violence because he felt his space was being taken from him when he could be in that isolation by himself, and he was by himself for a reason. Was mental health just playing in his head over and over again to where he's now threatening me, and I have to sit here and go, really? This is gonna happen, and it's just a ticking time bomb. And you, are, I've observed him in Gainesville going up to the biggest guy and putting himself in danger and taking it on to fight and falling to the ground and trying to use his thumbnail to push in people's eyes, things like that, where he is a menace. And isolation seems like his own break from mental health because I didn't see him until my last weekend and he came back and still didn't hang out with him or he found other pod people. But we did stay in touch. He did. We did meet up out of the jail once, I believe, just on coincidence, and I knew his name. But he remembered me. He's the one with the elephant memory, and goes, "Wow, dude, I remember when you were in Gainesville," and I was like, "Really?" And I didn't remember him. I just remembered a little dude that came and took care of me and stuff and showed me around and kept me safe in Gainesville until he got into a big skirmish fight about gang relations. I have family and half this jail's mine. That kind of badgering jail, it's not nothing I was interested in. I was interested in taking care of myself and getting out of there. I had a beautiful relationship and I needed to be there for and to get my schoolwork. So that's my wrap up on isolation. The medical violations, the neglect, the negligence of jailers, when they're responsible for transporting everything, when you keep them locked up, there you are fully responsible for that. And the medical needs, the medical reaction of and the leveraging of pushback by prisoners to jailers is a war. It's a constant battle of how far everybody will go. And I didn't need to be in any of that. I didn't even need to be introduced into a violent, smaller size conflict. The gift was the grace was I he knew me and I knew him from one visit in a whole different system that kept me out of threat, out of conflict of why are you running everything in a jail cell and not trying to help everybody? It turned into a caring process of actually, I guess, onboarding if you were an employer. But you'll catch up next time on the actual first parent and refusal of R&R, my time given to me, and charges, and the speed read. Speed read. Mumbling right to the mic. What are you going to do? Paragraph 44, to get through this online parenting shelter of of online court system, the circuit.